This kit is about the easiest and most affordable way to get your 2005 to 2009 Mustang GT or V6 feeling factory fresh. With brand new struts, shocks, control arms, tie rods, wheel hubs, and end links, plus all the hardware, this is pretty much an all-out refresh of the majority of your car's suspension and steering components, and it's going to cost you a whole lot less than you might expect. It makes for a really economical and sensible option, and it's going to have your S197 feeling just like it did the day it rolled off the showroom floor. In a seemingly endless sea of performance suspension options, coilovers, lowering springs, etc., sometimes we have to acknowledge that what people really want and need for their car is to get it back to how it was from the factory. And as much as none of us want to admit it, S197s are getting up there in age now. And just because they can pretty regularly get up there in mileage doesn't mean they're immune to suspension degradation. As components wear, your car can start feeling loose, harsh, and crashy, or just flat out noisy. This kit that we have here gives you pretty much everything you need to get your Mustang feeling, sounding, and driving like the day it was assembled. All this stuff is essentially OEM equivalent, so it's about as similar as you can get to Ford original parts without having to pay the Ford price tag. The struts come pre-assembled with new springs, upper and lower isolators, spring seats, preloaded bearing plates, and everything that you need, so these are going to just swap right in place of your originals. And that's pretty much the theme for this entire kit. So the same here is true of the rear shocks. These, like the fronts, are gas-charged twin-tube shocks, so they will act very much like your originals. You also get new inner and outer tie rod ends, front end links as well. The lower control arms, as you can see, have all new bushings pressed in and new ball joints too, as do those tie rods that we were just talking about. And there are also new hubs, which means that you've got brand new wheel bearings too. Now all of this means your Mustang's ride quality and handling will be basically reset back to factory original specs. It's going to feel quiet, it's going to feel smooth, just like it did when it was brand new. Now it is worth noting, this is not a performance-oriented upgrade in any way. It's really just the easy button to resetting your car back to stock. But that means when you hit a rough road or turn into a corner, it's going to respond reliably and exactly the way you'd expect it to. Construction is, of course, also very similar to OEM. You've got cold wound springs, aluminum shock bodies, steel control arms and tie rods, new rubber bushings and ball joints, plus all new mounting hardware and even some new boots. Everything that can be is finished off with this black electrostatic coating for additional protection against rust and corrosion. These are also fit and road tested to ensure that they meet strict quality control standards, so they're going to perform just like your original equipment. Everything has been manufactured in an ISO 9002 certified facility, so that means that each component has also been tested for impact, fatigue, and wear to ensure they meet those quality control standards that are strict and very similar to the OEMs. This setup is going to run you about $800, and that makes it one of the most affordable of its kind on the market. Now that price really makes this worth grabbing, as even if you went a more budget-focused route, you'd likely end up having to spend more money to compile all these components together. And everything comes together in one shipment, so you're paying less and it's more convenient. How easy is that, right? Installation gets a soft 3 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you can expect this job to take you upwards of 6 hours to complete. This is a totally bolt-on operation that doesn't require you to make any modifications to your car, and you don't even need a spring compressor since those front struts come fully assembled. However, tie rods, wheel hubs can be a pain, and there is a lot to do, so make sure you budget your time accordingly. Also worth noting that once you've got all this stuff on, you are definitely going to need to take your car for a professional alignment, so budget that in as well. We are going to walk you through the entire installation process right now though, so for that, let's head on out to the shop.
For this install, you will need a pry bar, a breaker bar, a hammer, a dead blow mallet, a caliper hanger tool, an inner tie rod tool, various impacts, various ratchets, an adapter if necessary, 5mm Allen socket, a pick, a chisel, 13mm wrench, 21mm ratcheting wrench, 22mm wrench, and 17, 18, and 19mm ratcheting wrenches, a large adjustable wrench, a pair of angle cutters, a pair of pliers, a 36mm axle socket, 10, 12, 13, 15, and 18mm sockets, a 15mm swivel socket, and also not shown here is a jack and jack stands. What's up guys, today we're going to be doing some suspension on our Mustang, so let's get started. Alright, so we're going to start things off with the rear shocks because we're going to be replacing those. What we're going to do, we have the wheels off, we have the vehicle on the lift. We're actually going to lower this down and put a floor jack under the side we're working on. Then we're going to remove the lower shock bolt. Then we have to go into the trunk and remove the upper shock bolt so we can get our shock out. All right, so we've got our vehicle lowered down a bit. We've got a floor jack supporting the differential on our passenger side. We're gonna start with that shock. So we're gonna go into our trunk, and fold back our fabric cover that protects and covers our upper shock mount. We'll grab our 15mm socket and remove that top bolt, or top nut rather, and the bushing and washer along with it. So again, now we're here in our trunk. We've got this fabric cover, which may be held on by some clips. Ours is not. You might need to pop those out. Normally it's not. We get our 15mm socket onto our upper shock bolt. Then we can remove that. Now we're back out to our wheel hub area, and we're gonna remove the lower shock mounting bolt, which is right down here, which is also a 15mm. Now that has a flag nut on it, so you don't need a wrench along with it. Just need our 15mm socket on our impact. Now we've got our impact on our bolt, and we'll run this off. Make sure you catch your flag nut as it comes off. We'll run our bolt out. Push that bolt out. And we can slide our shock out. And once you have this side out, you can do the same thing for the other side. So now we can install our new rear shock. So what we're going to do is grab our bottom washer and bottom bushing. That's going to be this tapered one. Slide that over our mounting stud. That's seated. And we're going to get our bottom mount in first. So we're going to reuse our factory 15mm bolt, and then we'll get our upper mount lined up. Once you have your lower mounting bolt most of the way through, you may have to compress your shock a little to get it into the upper mount. We'll get that through. There, flag nut back on. Turn that in. And we'll bring back our 15mm socket and tighten that back down. Now we're going to go back into our trunk and install our upper bushing and washer, followed by our provided 18mm nut, and then we'll tighten that down with our 18mm socket on our impact, and then cover it back up. So now we're moving on to the front, and the first thing we're going to do is remove our caliper bracket, and our rotor from our knuckle assembly. It's going to get it out of the way for us. To get our caliper off, we're going to grab a 12mm socket on our impact, remove the two slider bolts, move that out of the way, and hang that up with a caliper hanger tool. Then we'll come back for our pads, bracket, and rotor. Now before we remove our caliper itself, we have to remove the 10mm bolt for our brake line bracket. That's directly on the back of our strut. Kind of hard to see, but you'll need a 10mm socket on your impact. Just want to pop that out. That'll free up your brake lines. And we'll remove our caliper slider bolts. So we have those out. Work our caliper off. Once we have that off, we're going to grab our caliper hanger, hook our caliper up out of the way. Next we'll remove our brake pads. These are just going to pop out of their locators. Now for our caliper bracket, we're going to use a 15mm swivel socket. Out. Now we'll pull our rotor off, set that aside. So our next step is going to be to remove our outer tie rod. Now the first thing we're going to do is loosen up the retainer nut for the outer tie rod. Best to do while your tie rod is still in place. For that we're going to grab a 21mm wrench and just loosen up that nut. Next we'll use an 18mm ratcheting wrench to remove our outer tie rod nut. Leave this on a few threads. Next, with a few taps of a hammer, we will unseat our tie rod. Now we can unscrew our outer tie rod and remove our retainer nut. Next, we're going to remove our sway bar end link from our strut. So we're going to remove this 18mm nut and get our end link out of that bracket. Push that back and out of the way. Then we're going to remove our two lower strut mounting bolts to our knuckle. Again, we'll our 18mm socket on our impact. These have flag nuts. Now before we remove our strut bolts, we're going to remove our wheel speed sensor that's held in by a 10mm bolt. So we've got our 10mm socket on a ratchet. We'll pop this off. Pull that bolt out, and we're going to work our speed sensor out. Now you want to be careful with this. Sometimes they do get stuck. Now if yours happens to be a little stuck in there just like ours is, you can take a pair of channel locks or pliers and very gently grab on the back side of it where the mounting tab is and kind of work it out. Again, you want to be extremely careful with this. You do not want to break it. Set that up out of the way. Now we can remove our two lower strut bolts. Next, we're going to remove our pinch bolt for our lower ball joint. So we're going to use a 15mm socket on our impact and an 18mm wrench to get that off. Now we're just going to pull our knuckle and hub off. You may have to give it a little bit of pressure, work it back and forth. Now that we have our bolt loose, we're going to pull our knuckle and hub away from our lower ball joint. You might have to work it a little bit. It should pop right off. Now we're going to begin removing our lower control arm. So we've got two 21mm nuts holding the back portion on, and then we have an 18mm bolt with a 21mm nut up front. We're going to remove the two back here first and then come up and do the front one. So we've got our 21mm ratchet wrench because it is kind of tight. We'll get this off. Oh, okay. And once you have this first one out, you can repeat for the rear one. Now we'll loosen up our front bolt. Now one thing to keep in mind is once you start getting this loose, your control arm will begin to move. So you definitely don't want to put your face right in front of it in case it swings down. So we'll grab our 18mm ratcheting wrench and a 21mm ratcheting wrench and get this front bolt off. Now you will notice that the inner tie rod is blocking this bolt from fully disengaging. So now that we've got this loose, we're going to work on our inner tie rod. Now we have to remove the boot for our inner tie rod. Now this clamp on the inside closest to your rack, we are gonna have to cut off. So we've got angle cutters. We're gonna snip this crimp off, pop that out. Now we'll grab a pair of pliers and get this other clamp off. Slide that all the way off. And we can remove our boot. Sometimes these don't want to come off too easily. So now your boot is sitting in a recess, so you may not be able to get it all the way off of your inner tie rod. That's okay. You just want to pull this back. We're going to use a large adjustable wrench. Get this on our tie rod. Now we'll slide our boot off. It does get pretty stiff over the threads. Now if you have a pick at this point, you can get it underneath the boot. Work this off. Or since you're going to be replacing this permanently at home, you could cut this. However, we are not going to keep it on permanently. Next, we're going to use an inner tie rod removal tool to get our inner tie rod out. Now, if you don't have one of these, they're readily available for rental at most automotive parts stores or purchasing. So we're going to slide our socket on, get our socket in place, slide our tool over, that's to line up with the notches. Lock that in place. And we're going to take a 1/2-inch breaker bar on the end of our tool. Now we can unscrew our tie rod. Now we can fully remove our control arm bolt. And out comes our control arm. Next, we can remove our strut. So we have the 4 upper mounting nuts holding it in place inside of our engine bay. We're going to get up here with a 13mm socket. We'll remove the first 3. Then as we remove the last one, you want to support your strut. And then once that's off, you can pull it out. And support our strut. Last one off. And pull our strut out. Lastly, we're going to fully remove our sway bar end link from our sway bar. So again, with our 18mm ratcheting wrench, we'll remove this nut. And remove our end link. So now once you've got this side off, you can repeat the same process for the other side. So now we can begin installing our new products, and we're going to start with our sway bar end link. We're going to get that onto our sway bar and install our new provided 18mm flange nut. And grab our 18mm ratchet wrench and tighten that down. Once you get that on where the nut's not going to come off, you can just let that rest for a moment. So now to fully tighten this nut down, we're going to grab our 18mm ratchet wrench and a 5mm Allen socket on our ratchet. Next, we're going to get our new lower control arm in place. So we're going to slide this into the factory mounting points and get that front bolt in first. You may have to move your caliper out of the way. Get it to slide over. Work this up into position. Once you get that in, we can install our factory bolt. Get that started. All right. Next, we'll get our 2 rear bolts in. Put this in place. Now you may have to use a pry bar to get this lined up right. First one in, we'll loosely reinstall our nut. Then we can do the same thing for our rear nut. Now we'll tighten down our 21mm nuts, again with our 21mm ratchet wrench. And we'll do the same for our rear nut. Now we'll tighten down our forward mounting bolt with our 18mm socket. Now we can install our new inner tie rod. And these are going to be pretty stiff. Make sure this threads in nice and smooth. Now we're going to tighten this back down just with a large adjustable. Now we're going to install our new boot. Slide that over. Slide our outer clamp onto our smaller end. Now your kit does come with new inner clamps. These are kind of zip tie style. So what you're going to do is wrap this around where your inner clamp goes. And there is a sliding clamp point. You'll get that through, slide that into that, and then fold these ears down and clamp this in place. Now for demonstration purposes, because this won't be permanent, we're not going to actually do that because we don't want to destroy our clamp in the process, but you definitely want to do that at home. So next we can reinstall our knuckle. So we're going to line up our lower mounting point for our lower ball joint, slide that on. Then we'll reinstall our factory pinch bolt. So we'll get our factory 15mm bolt in place. Now this is slotted, so you want to make sure it goes into that slot. Install our nut. Then we'll grab our 15mm socket and 18mm wrench and tighten this back down. Next we're going to install our new outer tie rod, so we're going to get our retainer nut on first. Spin that on. We'll get our tie rod on. Remove your nut. Now we're not going to install this just yet. We're just going to get it set. Now we're going to line our tie rod up with our knuckle. Get that set into place. We'll install our nut. Now we're going to leave this just loosely fit just for the moment. Now we're going to install our strut, so we're going to send this up through and we're going to get our 4 mounting nuts onto our studs. Now we'll get the rest of our mounting nuts in place. And we'll come back and tighten these down. Now we're going to tighten down our nuts with our 13mm socket. Alright, so now that we've got our strut in place, we're going to actually pull our tie rod back out. This was just a placeholder to keep this steady. We're going to take that nut off, get this out of the way. It's going to make it a little bit easier to line up our knuckle to our strut. So we're going to grab our factory 18mm bolts and we'll get our strut lined up with our knuckle and get those bolts back in. Now we'll get this lined up. I do have a pry bar. It's going to make things a little bit easier. Get our bolts back in place. Once you get your first one through, you should be able to get your second one pretty easily. You may have to push on it a little bit. Now we can get our nuts back on. So we'll line these up and we'll get our 18mm socket. Get these started. We'll get both of them started before we tighten them. Once you have them both on, you can fully tighten them down again with your 18mm socket. Now we'll get our sway bar end link back in place. Line that up, get our nut on, then we'll grab our 18mm socket and tighten this down. Now sometimes with these lock nuts they don't want to go, so again we're going to have to use our Allen socket and our ratchet. Alright, so we've got our ratcheting wrench and our 5mm Allen socket. And tighten this down. Now we'll get our tie rod back in place. So now we'll tighten down our nut with our 19mm ratcheting wrench. Now we'll reinstall our wheel speed sensor. Now we'll reinstall our wheel speed sensor. We'll send this back through. Install our 10mm bolt. Tighten that back down with our 10mm socket. Next we'll reinstall our rotor. Now we'll reinstall our caliper mounting bracket. We'll get this back in place. Now we can reinstall our caliper mounting bracket. Get this back in place. And we can reinstall our factory hardware. Then we'll come in with our 15 mil swivel socket and tighten these back down. Next we can reinstall our brake pads. Line up the tabs, pop those back in. Do the same thing for our outer pad. Next we'll reinstall our caliper. Get that off our hanger. We'll tighten these back down with our 13 mil socket. Now we'll tighten these back down with our 12 millimeter socket. Now we'll get our brake line bracket back in place. Reinstall that 10 millimeter screw. That's kind of hard to see. So one thing to point out is with replacing your inner and outer tie rods, you will need to take your vehicle to an alignment shop to have one done. Now to get a base alignment situated so you can drive safely to the alignment shop and not tear up your tires or anything like that, you want to make sure that your hub and your wheel are pretty much straight in line with the car. That's at least going to get you to the shop. So what you're going to do is grab a 22 millimeter wrench and a 13 millimeter wrench. That 13 mil is going to go on the shaft of your inner tie rod. The 22 is for the retainer nut. And depending on where your hub sits, if the front is out or in, you need to adjust your tie rod accordingly. And you want to make sure your steering wheel is straight while you're doing this. And it's best to do it on the ground with the suspension loaded. This is just a demonstration. So you'll turn this either in or out depending on wherever. Once you get it pretty straight, you want to hold that inner shaft. Take your 22 millimeter wrench and tighten down that nut. And once you've got this side installed, you can repeat the same process for the other side. And always remember to torque your hardware down to the manufacturer recommended specifications. So for this kit, we're also going to be changing out our wheel hubs. So what we're going to need to do first is remove this cap that is containing our axle socket. So we're going to grab a chisel and punch into this cap a little bit to get it to separate. We got a chisel and a hammer. We'll give this some taps. And try to work this out as gently as possible. Now, it is a rubberized cap with a solid end. It is going to be a little bit of a pain. Now we're just going to continue tapping around this until it starts coming out. Once you've got one side started, it kind of helps to go at an angle. You want to try your best not to damage this cap. Next we're going to remove our axle nut itself, and we're going to grab our 36 millimeter socket to do so. Off comes our nut, and out comes our hub. Now once you have this side off, you can repeat the same process for the other side. Now we can install our new hub. You want to inspect your spindle, make sure it's nice and smooth, and we'll get this hub installed. Slide this on. We'll reinstall our axle nut, spindle nut, and we'll grab our 36 mil socket again and run this back on. Next we'll reinstall our cap. So we'll get this lined up and we're going to take a soft mallet and gently tap this back into place. Now we can reinstall our cap. so we're going to get this centered up. We're going to take a soft mallet and gently tap this back into place. Now if this goes in unevenly, we're going to bring our chisel or punch back and try to tap in these sides that are a little bit out. So after giving this some taps, make sure that's seated. Then we can reinstall our brakes. Alrighty folks, that about wraps up our review and install of our front strut and spring assemblies with lower control arms, shocks, tie rods, and wheel hub assemblies for your 05 to 09 Mustang GT and V6. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.